Welcome to the most important week of the year for the podcast industry. Welcome to Podcast Movement 2025.
Podcast Movement, how's it going? Great of you all to be here. We've got this panel about AI and how it powers modern media. We want to go into this conversation as a thought primer. I want this to be open, to be critical, to be beyond the marketing fluff. And I would like to invite all of us and all of you to think along. Think along the way at, are the tools that we have really the tools that we need? And if not, how could we change them? Or how could we build them ourselves or talk to the people that build them so that the tools that we have serve the purpose that we want? I really want to encourage a discussion. So all of you, crosstalk, please, is very welcome. If you have something to say, something to add, or something that you think this conversation still needs, please feel free to jump into the discussion. I will keep an eye on the time. We're going to be fine. Like I said, we're going to unbox the black box, but please, beyond the marketing. Just so that people know who we are, I would like to briefly introduce you. John, would you start 1 or 2 sentences? Who you are, what you do?
Hi everyone, I'm John Savage. I'm the CEO of the Africa Podcast Network. We're the largest podcasting network in Africa. We also run an empowerment hub with about 15,000 creators, and we are building tech in the monetization space in podcasting.
Good morning, everybody. My name's James. I am the editor of Podnews, which is a free daily newsletter all about podcasting. It's on your badge, as you can see. Yes, and I've been involved in the podcasting world since 2005 and play around with my own tech as well.
I'm Sharon Taylor. I'm the CRO of Triton Digital. We build tech for podcasting and podcasters all around the world.
Hi, I'm Neil Mody, CEO of Headliner.app. We use a lot of AI to try to help grow podcasts by helping you market them across the web.
Right, my name is Chris. I'm the head of strategy at Auphonic. We do automated audio post-production, which means that if you have any sort of recording, like a podcast with background noise, we can fix that for you. Right, beyond the marketing fluff, it seems like every couple of minutes the next biggest revolution is happening. There's gonna be the next biggest feature and everything's gonna be fine, and everybody waits for artificial general intelligence to pop around the corner. But beyond that, what do you think are actual real workflows that benefit people, and where do you think these tools might fall short still, and where could they improve? James, I would like to start with you. Do you have an opinion on that?
Oh, great. Thanks for starting with me. Look, I think there are an awful lot. The way that I think about AI is that it's an artificial intern. It helps you with what you do. It doesn't necessarily replace human beings, but it helps human beings get rid of the stuff which isn't creative to allow us to be more creative. So there's a big difference, I think, between generative AI, things that make stuff. So this morning I covered a new tool from Wondercraft called Wonder, where I typed in, make me a podcast about Dallas, things to do in Dallas, and please mention some craft beer, because I like beer. And within 2 minutes, it had made a 15-minute podcast, narrated. It starts with a dick joke, which is a bit weird. Thanks, AI.
The intern there. The intern. That's the intern.
It knows you so well.
Yeah. So that is generative AI. I'm still relatively uncomfortable about that. But AI tools that, for example, from Auphonic remove ums and ers, AI tools from Headliner that choose individual clips of shows to help you promote those. Those are all very different uses of AI, and I think that they have certainly a part to play in where we are.
Thank you so much. John, what do you think about that?
No, I mean, I agree. I think, this term AI, it's very confusing, it's very overwhelming, and people are using it for anything that's technological, right, and interesting. And I think the way to approach it and where it's most useful is to see it as a tool like you would Photoshop. It doesn't do anything. Yes, the anecdotal part of AI is make it do a thing and never does it well. It's not there to do something, it's a tool. And as soon as you start really understanding the difference between all the different, every AI is like good at one thing and like bad at 99 things. And once you start really understanding what each thing is good at, you approach them as a tool that help you with the efficiency and the work that you're creating. And then it kind of takes all of the mystery out of it and all of the, what should I do? You know, sometimes it's so powerful, you think, what should I create with this incredible tool? But really understanding the human aspect, what are you trying to create? What is your vision? What are the challenges? And identifying which of the AI tools are going to help you break through those barriers, whether financial or time, then it becomes very useful. And once you put that into your workflow, now you're a beast doing a lot of high-end stuff, and you're not just looking at AI and saying, make me stuff.
Yeah, playing into the strengths of the tools. Like, you wouldn't carve a spoon with a chainsaw, but you could cut down the tree to get the spoon later on with the appropriate tools. That's maybe something that's really important to consider, that the tools and their use cases are what we should focus on. Like, from the perspective of a big media corporation, Sharon, what do you think AI tools, how do they benefit you and your workflow, and where do you think these still fall short?
Good question. I mean, we're doing a few different things. So for us as like a tech platform with media, so we host about 150,000 different shows at the moment, and we're putting tooling into our platform so that, you can, as podcasters, get a little bit of help creating show notes or like making social media posts or blog posts and things like that. It's still not as good as you knowing your audience and knowing the show and like understanding what it needs to go into like a 3-line summary to really pop on Apple Podcasts next to your competition. But we're also looking at larger, more expansive things. So there's things that AI can do that would take a fleet of humans, like categorizing podcasts for language in programmatic advertising, or making it possible for contextual targeting to hit on podcasts because the AI understands better than a human and has more time to do it and faster than going through and saying, oh, this segment is sports, that segment is talk, that segment is about Pottery Barn, etc. And so I think, again, I echo what James and John said, which is there's lots of different applications that are possible out there. I think you need to make good choices about what you're actually trying to solve for, what your problem is, and then like making the selection from there.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Like, Neil, you're building a tool that helps classify content and say this is something that might be accessible for people, that they would want to see, that they would like, and help podcasters get their content in front of the eyes and ears of people. Like, where do you think AI benefits in that regard?
Well, I think, I think following along the analogy of the intern, I would say, I used to say it's like every 6 months we're getting like the age of the intern up. So like 2 years ago we had like a 10-year-old intern working on our stuff, and now a few months ago I was saying it's like a 15-year-old intern, and I think we're getting into the college years now level intern. So it's getting better and better. So I think, like, first and foremost, it's like everyone should be experimenting, figuring out where it is. Podcasting is like hard work. I think, how many are actual podcasters here? Yeah. It takes an army, it feels like, to get a good podcast out. But where the AI can fit in for all those people that used to help you is what you have to figure out. And I think to Sharon's point, and I think James and John's too, is like the quality might not be there, but the cost benefit of that time is the question. And so for us, going back to your question, it really just comes down to, hey, finding stuff, making it available to people, reducing the time it takes to actually produce and market a podcast. And so our metric always is like how fast we get people through the system. And as we make it better and better, we're hoping that time goes down. And I think that's a good metric for podcasters. How well can you get a good episode out in less time with everything else you're doing? And so you can focus a little bit more on the creative.
Do you maybe have a concrete example on how you use that within Headliner?
Yeah, I mean, across Headliner, there's so many tools. For the diehard techies, I'd say, like, we spent a lot of time on our video clipping stuff this past year, and it all really comes down to training data, how good your training data is. I'm sure you guys know this very well. So happy to talk about that. But I think in terms of like workflow stuff, you've gotten to the place where I think in like a year or two, this agentic kind of framework that's kind of materializing will just literally, you'll drop in some things and it'll just go down the array of all the usual tasks. And we're hoping to build stuff like that for you. So right now you go to one product for this, one product for that, one product for this. And I think all that abstraction will be happening. And so for Headliner, I think we've been really good about piecing together these different products, but you still have to go to it and even set up an automation. But over time, I think all this like manual plumbing workflow stuff will get solved.
Yeah, for sure. And jumping back into the training data, the model is always just as good as the training data is. That's something that we at Auphonic realize each and every day. Because AI, in our case, does a lot of classification. It classifies this is noise, or this is speech, this is contextually important, and this doesn't matter, so we can take it out. So the better the training input data is, the better the output is going to be. So there's a tremendous effort at that. And also, I believe it's the supervision of the agentic AI of the intern. You wouldn't want to leave an intern with a complex task and don't supervise it at all and say, this is the result, it works. I believe human supervision and human oversight will still play an important factor.
For those who want them, I'll just jump in there. So we have about 100,000 podcasters using our platform over the like on a monthly basis, and some are very comfortable with our AI posting all the way to social. I was very skeptical that people would do that, and then we have some people who would never do that, right? And so I think it's like cost benefit on your time. I think people are in different categories, and I think some people are ready for AI to just pick whatever to be out there. That's aggressive, in my opinion.
That's terrifying. I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be on the panel. I feel like I'm like the older Luddite kind of like, oh, are we going to unleash like the Terminator? But like, imagine if it came through as like a podcast and that was the way that like we were responsible for that. Yeah. But no, I mean, we get people asking us all the time, like, hey, what if I could just like have a chatbot that did all of my podcasting? Like, I just tell it what it is that I want to talk about today. And I do think that's an experience that I would want as a podcaster, because I feel like it's such a craft. And it's such a, like, it's you that's going into that. And so, like, I think there is still that beautiful element of being human that, you know, while we've got the college intern AI that I am championing on our behalf.
Yeah, I mean, I use AI voices for little jingles and things in one of the podcasts that I do. And I use the Wondercraft tools for that, and they are very good for that. But I wouldn't want to use an AI voice to host an entire show. There are podcasts out there which do that, and they do that very successfully. But to me, that's kind of still a bit of a step too far. There's a radio station in Australia which had an AI voice as the morning show DJ, and that radio station was used that voice for 6 months before anybody actually noticed that it was an AI voice. Which possibly says more about the radio station than it does the AI voice, but still, there we are. Voice.
But you made a good point about this when we were in Toronto for Radio Days. That presentation you did was so great. And you were like, if you're going to use it, just be honest with your audience about what you're using it for. Because I think that intimacy and trust that you've built with your audience, if you are putting it like front and center in that way, like you need to carry that through and be honest about what they're listening to.
Yeah, and especially in podcasting, I believe that the human factor is especially important, because that's just a personal opinion. I like to listen into podcasts where they have guests that I like and I would want to get to know personally. Like, how are they behind the scenes, off camera-ish? And that's the takeaways that I'd like to get from podcasting. And I believe AI wouldn't be able to replace that because it's machine generated and not the real deal to a degree. But I would like to abstract this conversation into a bit more of a global stance. We come from different continents all over the world, different niches, different parts of the industry. So what I was thinking is we could use this glorious perspective of each and every one of us to enhance the perspectives of each other. So I was thinking, John, is it drastically different in Africa to work with AI?
I think so. You know, it's very hard to, be out here in America and understand in Africa how under-resourced we are, you know, and AI is like the level playing field that the continent has been waiting for forever. You know, Africa is got you know, from an IP perspective, from a storytelling perspective, we are globally renowned, but actually the creation and the execution has always been hindered by access to resources, access to capital. And so for us, like this AI space, we are really deep, not because we're playing with it, because it's an absolute necessity. You know, there aren't budgets in the podcasting space, and so these tools are used every day. It's why, personally, I think all the innovation that is happening in podcasting is happening in Africa, because it isn't an established ecosystem that we're building into. We're building everything from scratch. None of the really cool tools that are already in the ecosystem work in Africa. YouTube shopping doesn't work, like Spotify, like a lot of the monetization tools. So what you've got is people having to build stuff from the ground up. And so, like for me, I look at podcasting, for example. Like our approach to AI is very, I feel like what is happening in Africa is deeper than everywhere else, because it's not a whimsical thing that we're looking at and saying, how do I enhance my workflow? It's an absolute priority to be able to produce high quality content.
That's so interesting, because in my European mind, the first thing that comes to mind is regulation. It's the AI Act. It's 1,000 pages of law that dictate how we should and shouldn't use it, and there's benefits to that. Don't mistake me. I think like not being able to have facial recognition for governments, I think that's cool. I think that's necessary. But also there's like this standpoint of not having the ability to innovate as fast as it would be possible in the US, for example. Like, any one of you want to jump into that discussion?
Well, I actually, for Sharon, I mean, I think we have a lot of media customers as well, and what's surprising to me is I think they've got the staff to be able to leverage this stuff, but they have some of them have outright AI bans still going, mostly because they wanna have a position that's very pro-creator internally as well. And so I think like, you know, Europe, there's, you know, on the government side, but I think you're seeing some of that on the American side as well. And then I think on the media org side as well. And so, like, to John's point, I mean, as an individual creator, it might be a great tool to like really help you kind of punch above your weight, as they say, right? And be able to kind of outpace some of these organizations where picking the tool and implementing the tool and all these other things will take so long. And a creator's kind of at an advantage because it's kind of leveled the playing field a little bit.
I agree. I also think from a creator's point of view, like, and there's a thing going on in Australia at the moment, it's your work. It's your content, and like that is out there at the moment, building and helping build training models, etc. Artists and creators should be protected, and I do think that we, especially at the rate of innovation with AI, and especially with the amount of money that's getting pumped into it in the US, I ran a startup. I understand the need to like scale and sell and build value for shareholders, but we should just, I think, take a second to, as a community of creators, realize what we might be putting at risk.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I've really noticed, I get to speak in some incredible parts of the world, and I was on a Pacific island, a place called Niue. Heard of Niue? No, me neither until I went there. But what was fascinating, I was showing them some of the AI tools that were available, and this is literally the difference for them between having media and having content which is for them and not having it, because they don't have the people to be able to put quite a lot of this stuff together. But then, and this is something, you know, maybe you might speak about, different languages, AI tools are at very different levels, and you know, and so I was talking to them about this, and they said, "Does it work in Fijian?" And I said, "Yes, it does." Does it work in Niuean? No, it does not, and it doesn't work in most of the languages. And you know, online editing tools don't necessarily work in all of those languages as well. Are you seeing? I mean, obviously, you know, most of the AI tools will work in the German language, and in most of the European languages. But I guess once you start looking at Norwegian or Greenlandic, I'm guessing it's slightly less.
I don't think Greenlandic is a...
It is.
Is it?
It is. Genuinely
Oh my
is.
God, wow.
Yes.
Yeah, we definitely see that, especially with the feature called filler word cutting. This is so highly language specific that filler words are very different in French than they are in English, than they are in German, in any Slavic or Arabic languages. So what we need to do is specifically train our algorithms to classify correctly within each language. So we do hire specifically people that speak these languages to help us out in that regard, because for me, it wouldn't sound unnatural if some Slavic language would have some filler words left or cut something inappropriately. But for a native speaker, it sounds very wrong, very fast.
Yeah, we have the same. So we have, for the Sounder platform that we have, with its contextual targeting and like brand suitability, we bring humans on, like who speak native languages, so that they can add the contextual importance that we need. Because, what is slang in one dialect is not in another, and what one word means in Spanish doesn't mean anything in English. And it's just, there's brands and there's named entities and things that go into it. And so I think that's really important.
Nothing affects us because none of the AI speak African languages.
They will, though. I mean, it's cost benefit at the moment. So we're bringing on new languages, so are you. And I mean, as soon as we hit a tipping point where the AI can produce a language faster and more cheaply than like we can sell it, then I think that's where it moves over. And to your point, I think that's the democratization of audio. Like, so that you can, like, we've got a publisher client called Nippon Broadcasting. They built a tool called Linguini, which takes your content from English and can put it into 7 different languages, so that you can launch a show in different markets. And it's your own voice that they're cloning. Like, it's really interesting. And that's helping. At the moment, you wouldn't get it in Greenlandic, especially because some people don't know that it's a language. But like that market is coming, and that world is coming for us.
Like, something that we've been thinking about is getting the human back in the loop right there, to have them oversee if a cut is set correctly or mistakenly, if something has been classified correctly, and let them decide, like in the aftermath, AI would get you to 80 or 90% of the result, but that's our, I would say, guarantee that the human in the loop can still say, okay, this and this not. Yeah. The future is coming fast. Maybe a bit of a tough segue right now, but looking back 1 year ago sometimes seems like it's been in the Stone Age with the pace of technological revolution that's currently happening. What do you think? I would like to ask each one of you, what do you think is going to be one AI-driven change within the podcasting industry within the next 12 to 18 months that seems unavoidable now, and how could creators prepare for that? Neil, you look like you have an answer.
Well, I think you're already starting to see it on I know we're going to probably talk about YouTube a lot, but they've already started allowing people to like skim via summaries and so on. I think generally how people can kind of scan and understand where they want to jump into an episode, especially kind of knowledge-based stuff, not narrative fiction maybe, but like be able to slice and dice to get where they find value. I think that's going to be kind of the sea change that's starting to happen already on YouTube. Chapters, generating chapters, automatic, personalized chapters, personalized looks at your entire podcast catalog. That's what I think the big change will be in the next year.
I just think it'll be an increase of usage across the board. Like, I think that the tools that are already there are so nascent. Like, they're really only used by probably, I don't know, I'll just throw a number out there, like 10% of podcasters. Like, I think that because we're still doing so many sessions like this where it's like educating on what the tools are that are available. And so I imagine it's just going to be a greater swell of people using like AI chapter markers, ad markers, content tagging, content creation, like in terms of show notes, etc., those things.
Yeah, I mean, I think as we begin to trust these tools more as creators, then they will be used more. One of my podcasts is hosted on the Buzzsprout platform. Buzzsprout has this AI tool called Co-Host, which is a mix of different tools, and has another AI-driven tool called Magic Mastering, which is actually Auphonic under the hood. I didn't necessarily trust they launched this new thing, which is your technology, which is getting rid of the ums and the ers. I didn't trust that it would work. And having used it once, I thought, oh no, this is actually good enough for me to use, and I will continue to use it now. And so I think as we become more trusting in these tools, then I suspect you'll see more use of that. There is a whole podcast network out there called Calaroga Shark Media. Calaroga Shark Media is really interesting in that they do very quick turnarounds for very detailed podcasts. So when the Pope was ill earlier on this year, they pretty well instantly launched a brand new podcast series called White Smoke, which talked about what happens when the Pope dies and when they choose a new Pope. And that they rushed out within a day and a half of the news of the Pope being ill. And actually moving fast like that and using AI to produce the scripting, using AI to produce the voicing is really interesting. Now, should it say this is AI? In my view, yes. But there again, I think back at the 1980s and the music that we used to listen to in the 1980s. There wasn't a sign on the side of a Stockache and a Waterman.
Used.
Yeah, exactly. Stockache and a Waterman thing saying, caution, this song may contain a drum machine. So actually, I'm wondering whether I'm a little bit old-fashioned even in that.
I'm holding the fort on that one. Don't worry.
So I got a bit of a different perspective because I kind of think that it's the workflows that are getting smoother. Like the thing about, ChatGPT being able to build your own GPT, and also leaning into the fact that we now know more about what AI is doing. So, for example, as a podcaster, there's so many different ways if you understand the problem, how you're going to engage with AI. So you might decide, okay, your problem is you want to be a video podcast as well. So how are we going to now create something? I don't have the budget, the resources, and starting to look at what problems are there and saying, okay, well, Descript or LTX have a green screen background, so now I don't have to worry about that. But now I need a world-class looking studio. So am I going to use Midjourney for an image and start creating a workflow and then building your robot in ChatGPT to make that more efficient? But then as things go forward, you might say, look, how am I, and that's why I'm saying understanding what the AI is capable of, as opposed to saying, oh, it's replacing me and here's a warning. You might decide for your video podcast that really understanding where video generative AI is. Maybe you want to interview cartoon characters for your podcast. Maybe you want to, you got the whole cast of Family Guy, you want to interview them. And understanding the capability of the technology, building workflows to support what you're doing, doesn't require, like everyone saying, oh, it's not me. It's actually becoming more organically part of your process. And so really just understanding all these different AIs, they have very specific. I mean, if you look at video, Kling AI is really good at putting the voice onto video, but it's really bad at camera movements, whereas like Runway is much better with camera movements and understanding this is the workflow I'm trying to build, using ChatGPT to build a robot and say, whenever I'm doing camera moves, I want to use Runway. Can you give me a prompt for Runway? But when I'm doing voices, can you use Kling AI? Give me a prompt for that. Now you're building a workflow by yourself to bring, using AI as different tools to bring your podcast to life. And I think that's going to become more normal, which is instead of it doing one thing for us and have us having to put a disclaimer out there, it's just going to be part of the process. And then it'll enhance our podcasting ability because we'll incorporate it as part of the tool, not a replacement tool.
That's very smart. And I personally believe that creativity will be rewarded. Like a lack of effort is very easily visible, but creative use of tools that are available will be rewarded. In the short term or the long term, that's debatable, but it will be rewarded, I personally think. All right, we got 40 seconds left. I would like to end with a quick fire round. Please, just one word answer for what do you think is an overhyped feature? Neil. Oh. One word or one sentence?
Lip syncing. I think it's not.
Just one word. Sharon.
Nothing.
Right.
I'm going to give one word. Almost everything. That's
Yeah.
2 words.
I was going to say AI. That's good.
Yeah,
But there is so much which is overhyped, isn't it?
Right. Cool. Well, I had a couple of more like underrated features, like red flags that you have, or tools that you couldn't live without. But we are out of time. Thank you, everybody, for being here. If you'd like to continue this discussion with us, please join us after the panel. We'll be here. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Christoph.